Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and you know I love Holly Black's books. I love The Darkest Part of the Forest and The Coldest Girl in Cold Town. Like, I loved those books. And now I've read a new Holly Black book, and that is The Cruel Prince. And I started reading the book Tithe, T-I-T-H-E. It's a fairy book by Holly Black. Sadly, very sadly, I DNF'd that book. So I was kind of scared going into this book because this is another Holly Black fairy book. But I got through it. The beginning of it didn't catch me. It was very slow and I was afraid, like, it made me afraid that I was going to DNF the book at the beginning of this book. But the middle, it was picking up. It caught my interest somehow, I don't know. Maybe because it just was moving faster and things started to happen. I didn't even tell you what this book is about. So Jude was 7 when her parents got murdered, and her 2 sisters were stolen away to a high fairy court realm. And now Jude wants nothing but to belong there despite her being mortal. And many fate despise humans, especially Prince Caridin, the youngest and wickedest of the king's sons. To win a place in the court, she must defy him and face her consequences. As Jude becomes more deeply embroiled in the plots and deceptions, she discovers her own capacity for trickery and bloodshed. But as betrayal threatens to drown the courts of fairy and violence, Jude will need to risk her life in a dangerous alliance to save her sisters, and fairy. When I first went into this book, I had no idea what it was about. I just knew it was a Holly Black book and I was sold, but I was still hesitant because it was about fairies, and like I said, the last book I read about fairies by Holly Black didn't end good. This book wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more of a young adult, like, romance, fairy, kings and queens and princesses, and then there's like the mutts, the humans and fae, and like overcoming that, I guess. Yeah, I didn't read the description when I was reading this, but it is not like that at all, as you know from what I just told you about the book. But it did kind of bore me a little bit at the beginning. That's where it was really slow. So I almost DNF'd this book, but I persevered and it started to pick up in the middle to where like action started happening, and there's a lot of bloodshed in this book. There's a lot of bloodshed, cruelty, and brutality, and it's just wow. There's no romance in this book with the main character. There is, like, to the side, there's fairy romance where it's not like serious love, like they love everybody, I guess, and it's not like as serious to them as it is for humans. But if you're looking for like a fairy romance, this is not the book, because it's more of this girl saving herself, her family, and trying to make things right in the fairy world court with all like the politics, I guess you could say, and people wanting to rule. She's trying to make it right, even though it's like she's not from there. She's lived there like basically her whole life. But this book, the writing's good, the dialogue's good, the writing structure is so good. The structure of the story is so good to where how the story turned out. Like, Holly Black thought of everything. She thought of everything. She did not leave anything out. Whatever she puts in this book is not just to like add in fluff to it. It's in there because it's in the story and it's like a part of the story. It all adds up. It's not like fluff being added, which is amazing. But the Cruel Prince, he is very cruel. But there is a lot of brutal bullying in this book, and it's towards the main character and her sister, but more towards Jude. And I can understand the way she turned out from being bullied like that brutally. Like, I know she should like overcame it and be the better person, but I can understand where she came from and how she was acting from being bullied. But she turns herself around, and because what she's doing that's not great is more for herself, but towards the middle of the book it changes into where she is not only like for her, she's not for like herself really anymore, but she's like her plan, it envelops like her family and like the fairy court and like just making everything better. And it's a very subtle change, like it just weaves its way into the story of how she changes from being like she wants to get revenge to being like she wants to make things right. And it's so like amazing how that happened, because you don't really notice it until like it all sneaks up on you to where she's like suddenly like she's changed kind of, but you can tell it was woven in there. It's just really amazing how Holly Black writes. I love it. I wouldn't have picked this book up if I read the description of it, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, because just because of the description, there's a whole lot more to the story than what the description offers. I guess you just go through the journey and the trials and tribulations with the characters, and it's not my favorite book, because that one part of the book, there was nothing of that in this book, which like was the romance part of it, and that makes it more interesting for me, is romance. So on that note, even though there was some places here and there where she like kissed someone, but it wasn't like the main focus, I guess, which is good in a way, because a lot of books, our main focus is on the romance, and like the other things around the story happen, you know, it's like the minor stuff. But in a way, I did like how this wasn't like a cliche about romance book and then all the fairy stuff happening around it. But my mind is more driven to like romance books. I fly through those, but since there's like nothing in here, it took me a little bit longer to read because it wasn't as interesting. But it did keep me on my toes, and I did not guess the outcome of this book, because man, she is good at her trickery. Wow. She turned out to be a really incredible person, woman, young lady, whatever you have. But I will say that I didn't like the ending of it, where it was going until the last couple chapters. This wasn't my favorite book of Holly Black's, but I know I am going to be reading the second book, even though I have no idea where that's going to take it. But on how this ended, I have a feeling it's going to start like years later of where this ended, which I'm hoping, because I really want to read about that, of how that's going to go about. Oh my gosh, I hope it's like that. I gave this book, on my Goodreads it says like 4 out of 5 stars, but it's like more 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like, it was good, but wasn't my favorite, but I still really enjoyed it. But there's one thing about this book that, like, I'm not gonna spoil anything, so I'm just gonna be like, this character, that character, how they changed or turned, you know, so I don't really give it away, because you'll still be guessing on what character turned or like whatever it was. But I don't like how in the ending, but like middle ending of the book, there's one person, they like changed drastically with like their feelings towards this other character in the book. Like, no one changes that fast about someone, and of how they treated that person in the beginning, middle of the book, you can't just do like a whole flip 180 on that and just become someone completely different. Like, what? That's one thing I didn't really get, or like didn't like about the book, is that one part with that one character in it, because no one changes like that in books, yeah, but no one changes like that, especially that person in this book. That's one thing that I didn't like, though, because it doesn't make any sense. But then we do find out, like, from not necessarily other people's point of views, but like, but when someone was talking to that person about like how the other people went about it and how other people felt about it, we kind of get that other person's perspective on it, and it kind of makes more sense. Which is, I kind of wish there was like more point of views in this book than Jude's, because that would make a lot more sense. Even though maybe that would have been more of a thicker of a book than it already is. But I kind of wish we got more than one person's point of view on this story. Because it was just very one-sided, and of how things ended up in the ending, and we get that one-side person's view of it, it doesn't really make sense. But like I said, Holly Black thinks of everything to where they tell that one person about it, on how it really went on, just not from the first person's perspective. But that makes sense. I'm not trying to spoil y'all. Am I just confusing y'all? I probably am. But I do wish that there was more than one person's point of view, instead of like of how Holly Black did eventually have it come around to explaining that, of how the ending of the person went, and not making any sense. But I will give her that she did think of everything. I just wish that she, instead of doing what she did, I wish there's more than one person's point of view in this book. That's what I'm trying to say. But like I said, and keep saying that it's not my favorite book, but I did like it. I was entertained, and I do give this book a 3.5 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to more videos by me, and I'll see you guys later. And my phone just fell. Bye!